I would like to introduce Sherika Miller-McIntrye of Carrot Properties. She will be discussing best practices to maintain profit, occupancy, and property preservation while integrating HCVP assistance into your portfolio.
Good afternoon, John, and all of the attendees, along with the INLIVIAN staff. I am so thankful to Kia and Tamika for reaching out to me for this particular opportunity. They both know that I have a huge passion for not only the program, but also for helping property managers in our city. You can go to the next slide. I am Sherika Miller-McIntrye. I am a long-term property manager here in the Charlotte area. I've been in the business now for 15 years. I am a broker owner of Carrot Properties. I'm also a landlord who has had the pleasure of partnering with the program for over 18 years. I also am an investor, and I also consult with novice landlords on the keys to profit, occupancy, and property preservation. Today, I'm excited to speak with the attendees in regards to practical application of profit, occupancy, and property preservation in a partnership with INLIVIAN. This is extremely important to me. As a property manager, I understand the challenges that are faced by individuals that have vouchers and the complexities of finding safe, habitable, and affordable housing. You may go to the next slide. So I'm going to do this off the cuff today. These are three numbers, and I would like to know who would like to take a guess at what these three numbers mean. So I'm going to actually give away three $25 gift cards today, and the support team will help me figure out who the winners are. But I'm going to start with this first number. Who wants to take a guess at what 3160 represents? And we'll just give a few seconds for someone in the chat to just take a guess on what 3160 represents. Don't be bashful. Do we have anyone that has posted that number? No? Well, if that's the case, what I'll do is I'll let you know what that number represents. 3,160 is a number that represents the opportunities that you can have for leasing one of your units to an individual on the HCVP program or HCV program. How about 1423? Does anyone want to take a guess at what that number represents? And again, there's a $25 gift card for you if you decide you would like to put in the chat what 1423 represents. No? Who? No
okay,
one?
we have a few responses.
Okay, let's see what we have.
Average household income.
Close, not so close.
Maximum permitted square footage.
Okay, this is $1. It does represent a dollar amount.
Number of evictions per month in Charlotte.
Oh wow, that could be close. That could be close. Okay, 1423 is the number that I actually received just this week on a the highest 3-bedroom voucher amount. I believe that is the number that I received this week. And so the reason I wanted to point that out is because a lot of people don't understand the vouchers, the voucher amounts, and sometimes make an assumption on the qualifications that someone may have as it relates to their property because of the actual lease amount. So let's talk about the next amount. How about 3 to 5? That's just a range, and I'm going to throw it out there, 3 to 5 years. Does anyone want to take a guess on what the 3 to 5 years would look like or what that would represent? And please keep a count. I definitely want to have the email addresses to the individuals because I will give out a $25 gift card for the person that gets this correct. So 3 to 5 years, that is a range. Does anyone want to take a guess on what that would represent? No? Well, I'll give that to you. 3 to 5 years is what I actually have experienced on the number of years that clients remain in a property under the program. And actually, I did that on a 10-year scale. If I was to take that out just a little bit broader, up through 15 years, we probably would be looking at closer to 5 to 7. And I believe I actually heard Kia earlier mention the fact that most program recipients stay in a property from 7 to 8 years, or the average is 7 to 8 years. And we'll talk about why that is so important in a little bit. You may go to the next slide. One of the reasons I was asked to come and speak to the symposium today is because of practical application. We've heard some valuable information today, and I'm sure that if you are an attendee, you're not only familiar with the program, but it's a good chance that you have experienced the program. But actually applying what we've learned in the real environment of property management or being a landlord in partnership with INLIVIAN is sometimes can be difficult or unknown. And so it was my job to come in today and really speak to why it's important to partner with INLIVIAN, what the practical applications are for profit, for occupancy, and property preservation. And so please, if you have any questions as it relates to managing your property or the properties of others, please put that in the chat, and I'll be more than glad to answer questions as it relates to practical applications. And so for me, I believe this is a win-win scenario. As a property manager, you can effect change in the mindsets, behaviors, and help increase the probability of ownership amongst residents. That's actually why I got into property management, all while making a lucrative income and serving yourself and or your clients effectively. You may go to the next slide. Why partnering with Libyan Matters? The HCV program looks to increase low-income households' access to safe, affordable housing in a wide range of neighborhoods. That in itself, to me, is key. So when I'm having conversations with landlords that are asking subsidy or no subsidy, I have to be able to support why I believe partnering with organizations such as INLIVIAN is important. And one of the first things I tell clients is it isn't any different than marketing your property to fair market and being able to provide what you would do anyway, a safe property at market value in a wide range of areas. You may go to the next slide. And I always begin with asking the hard questions, not only of myself, but of clients that come to me and they question or immediately deny the opportunity to work with a partnership with INLIVIAN. The first question I ask is, am I biased? And I have to be truthful. That's a question I had to ask myself almost 18 years ago when one of my first tenants came to me with a housing voucher. I had to ask myself, is there anything that I'm aware of within myself that causes me to be biased against this program? And we talked a little bit about dispelling myths about the section, or what used to be the Section 8 program. Because instantly it feels like when I mention that word or have used that word, people automatically say no. And then they give me a list of the no's. And we talked about some of those. I don't want my house tore up. That's a huge, comment. Or they're going to have too many children. Or what happens if they don't pay their rent? I won't be able to evict them because this is a government program. And those are myths. Those are untruths. And I do the best I can to explain to clients that these are untrue statements. And have I embedded those into me unknowingly? So that's always the first question. Am I not using the program because I'm biased in some sort of way? Also, if you are a property manager, can you effectively explain the program to others? Have you done enough research to supporting someone else in their decision in partnering with a subsidy program such as INLIVIAN? Also, do I understand the client base? There have been some great tools and tips about understanding who the clients are in the program, how their income is calculated, how they go through programs in order to be good residents, good tenants for landlords and property managers. Do you know enough about this to be able to explain it to someone else? And also, can I operate profitably? It's amazing to me that many people think, oh, I'll lose money because I go through a partnership with the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is not true. In fact, you're actually increasing your opportunity for profits by being with a program such as INLIVIAN. Does any of my current processes or procedures need to be changed? And the answer to that is really no. For the most part, you want to keep everything as streamlined as you continuously do now in your business model. Therefore, there's no questions about if you're treating someone any different because they're a voucher recipient or if they're coming from the general public. And the main thing is, do you provide safe, sanitary, and secure housing? And that should be an answer of yes, regardless of who you are, correct? Next slide, please. So I would like to take this time to break down 3 sections of why partnering with the HCD program is important. And we're going to start with profits. And that's probably the thing that most people want to talk about, correct? So number 1, we've talked about long-term tenancy. I've been in the business managing for other people for 15 years. And as I told you, I've started investing about 18 years ago using one of my first tenants under the program. With that being said, I can tell you that within that time frame, my average market tenant may stay 2 to 3 years. 3 to 5 is a stretch depending on the dollar amount if I was to break it down by rental price. 5 to 7 years is a good amount of time for a program recipient. So by doing this, what you're increasing is the opportunity for you to have continued rents for a long period of time. I have this thing, and it's called the rule of 6 by 5, which basically means if you can get 6 tenants to stay 5 years, then you can literally pay off a 30-year mortgage. By using the HCD program, that almost cuts that amount down by half the number of tenants that you would have to have in your property. And so when you look at long-term tenancy, what you're thinking of, what does that cost me? So number 1, if you have a long-term tenant, you're not paying turnkey prices. So you're not going in and rehabbing the house. You still have your, normal repairs, but you're not going in to turn your property over as much. You also avoid the opportunity of loss of rent because if they're staying for a longer period of time, you're not putting the house on the market, doing the turnkey services, and then waiting for a new tenant. You also have the opportunity to increase profits while you have a tenant by doing just nominal rental increases. I have had the opportunity to go from ranges where there were periods of time where there were very low increases, and you're looking at 2%. To maximum of about 5%. I know that does range for properties and areas and, of course, voucher amounts for tenants. But we have been able to pretty much consistently do rental increases, even though there is a process to it. But that overall creates the opportunity for increased profits, or at least consistency within your profits. So it's always a best option to look at, if I get a tenant in my property and they remain for a long period of time, is this beneficial to me? Of course it is. Of course it directly relates to your cash flow. Secondly, with profits, you want to look at consistency, because even though you might have someone coming in and they're paying the rent, are they paying it on time? And who better to partner with than someone that's going to be consistent from a solid payer? And the program is definitely a solid payer, paying on time, monthly, like clockwork. And the only time I've ever had an issue, or I even know of any issue, is in 2013 during the sequestration, or the possibility of the sequestration. Again, we talked about the less turnkey services. Also, you have less eviction costs or lower eviction costs. I can only speak to my personal experience. If I do apples to apples between a market tenant and a program recipient, I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have more of a chance to do a full eviction with my market tenant. And the reason being is because evictions hurt. Evictions can cost a tenant the opportunity to continue on the program. And who wants to lose the opportunity to remain on a program and be supported if needed because they're being placed in eviction? Now, that does not mean that people will not be placed in eviction, but just the likelihood that you continue that full process. And I can tell you that on a year's average, right now, our company goes about 10% of our total inventory goes to the voucher program, or we have recipients on the program. With that, I can tell you now that I probably only do one full, meaning start to actual court date eviction within a year, which is very nominal, a really small amount for me. And that does not go to full fruition, meaning going all the way to actual padlocking or writ of possession situation. So for me, it's very nominal. And one of the reasons being, again, is because of the partnership with the organization. The opportunity to pick up the phone to say, look, we have a tenant that may be in jeopardy. We know you can't do anything about it, but we just want to give you a heads up. Then to go to the tenant and say, look, if we put you in for eviction, you're actually jeopardizing your voucher. Most of the time, or for my case, pretty much 99% of the time, we have the ability to solve any issue with that particular tenant. Also, you have a low risk of unpaid rent. That's huge, right? If you're looking at cash flow and you have a voucher amount, and I'll just use $1,000 for even numbers. If you have a tenant that's only paying 10% maybe of that, 20% of that, then that amount is what you're at risk of losing. Everything else is pretty much guaranteed. And again, because that dollar amount is so low, the likelihood that you would really move forward with a full eviction on that dollar amount is less likely. And it's more likely that the person could be able to come out of an eviction process, or by paying late, they would be able to recover for themselves. Also, what I love, and I actually just experienced this myself, is the continuity bonus that's provided by the HVC program. With this, it basically means that if you have a tenant in one of your properties today and you decide that you want to continue with the program with another recipient, the program can step in and provide up to 14 days of rental income for that gap time. And I actually just experienced this myself this summer. So who does that? If you put your house on, the market today and looking for another tenant, there's nobody to, help cover the loss of rent. So that continuity of being a partner with the program could truly be beneficial to current landlords and clients if you're managing for other people. Managing fees, and this is actually specific to other property managers. Every business, of course, has their policies and procedures. I particularly have a set fee for clients that choose to go through this program. And though I can't talk about the fees, what I will say to you is that by doing that, there is additional work. So just so you know, I do it because there is additional work. The owner does have to approve for the program. And because of that additional work, there's a nominal fee that we have for our owners that go through this process. And it's not just about the additional work to get the program started, but it's also about some of the policies and procedures that are in place for the program as you continue on with that particular tenancy. Also, the possibility of recoup damages. If you are a landlord or a property manager, if someone damages your property today, what's your recourse? The only thing that you can do is potentially go to small claims court, and there's a process for that. There's, you have to make sure you know where that person is. They have to be served. You have to be able to prove it's beyond normal wear and tear. It's a lot of work to do that. The HCV program allows for the possibility to recoup damages in their risk mitigation program, which is up to $1,000. Now, of course, you do have to work through the security deposit, and it has to be items beyond normal wear and tear. I will also tell you another thing, and one of the processes that I really love about the program, again, is the communication with their staff. I have had scenarios in the past where there were some real challenges. And again, it's no different than any other program. However, because I go to bat in order to have owners or landlords support this program, I go really hard in order to support this program. I have to make sure that at the end, I also make sure that my clients are whole. And so I had a scenario with an instance of, a property being damaged at the end of the tenancy, and the tenant moved out. I was able to work with the program in order to do a payment plan with the tenant. Now, that might not be always available, but it was a great option for myself, for the tenant as well, so that they didn't have any other issues to arise based on this, such as court fees and those types of things, but also for the owner. And so having that partnership and being able to come in and talk to someone to kind of have a middle person to help was very important for myself and for the landlord. And then rental increases, we just talked about that. Profits, of course, are built on your ability to increase rent or lower expenses. And so rental increases have been something that I have been able to do easily, and most owners are. If you have questions about the process, you can call a team member with Libyan and they will walk you through it. But it really seems to be streamlined for me. Very easy, automatic, once a year. And again, we've gone from 2% to 5%. It seems like in this time frame that I've worked with the program, there may have been only one time that I believe we had some delays with rental increases, but for the most part, it's been very streamlined. And again, no different than what you would do if you were working with a market tenant. Next slide, please. How partnering with the HCV program impacts occupancy. So when you're thinking about marketing your property, you go out, depending on how you market your property, you list this property, and on some platforms, they actually have a checkbox where you can say, do you want to accept subsidy, Section 8, housing voucher program is what we're hoping everyone is leading to. And once we do that, our office does that, I can tell you we're being flooded. And we're being flooded because there's so many people that have vouchers that are currently out and coming available, and the limits for housing has reduced drastically. And so marketing, again, is no different. You don't do anything different, but maybe check a box or add that description into your advertisement to say that you're looking for an individual with subsidy. I actually have several clients that only want to market to subsidy recipients, and they have their own reason why. But marketing, again, is exactly the same. The application process is probably the area where I get the most questions. Do I have to do anything different? I will tell you, for our office, the only thing different we do is how we calculate income. So we still do a full parameter of verification of rental history, a verification of income, a verification of criminal background check, their credit check. We also do a calculation of their rent to income ratio. And so in doing that, we don't do anything for anyone in the program that we wouldn't do for someone, a regular market individual searching for a property. In doing that, what we have found is we can go to owners and say, apples to apples, this individual on the program versus a public person or a market person is no different. The only difference is their source of income, which is their housing. And so with our partner who actually does all of our application screening, we have a process in which we add in the income that they would be receiving from housing. I do know that some programs are looking to change that. I do know some areas have also stated that in the future you will not be able to discriminate based on the program. But for now, owners still do have the opportunity to decline or accept someone because of the application process. Because of the program. What I will tell you is that for me, for my office, knowing that two things are very important. Knowing that someone has been screened through the program, knowing that they're going through that good neighbor program and they're getting information prior to becoming a participant in the program is really important. It's almost as if I'm doing a secondary screening of the fact that they've already been screened. And so I think that's extremely important when you're thinking about, am I going to have someone that's going to come in and tear up my property? Well, you already have someone that's been screened. If they still have their voucher, so if they're not new to the program has actually gone to the previous landlord, hopefully, and received a good standing letter. I know I have to fill those out from the previous landlord in order for them to get a new voucher. I don't know too many landlords that will write a good standing letter if the person isn't in good standing. And so you have like almost a layer of protection or some added protection in that. And so when people say things like, I don't want to be on this program because I think something's going to happen to my property, it's almost like, well, they've already been screened. So if they were, that bad, would they still have their voucher? Would they still be on the program? Not to say that that couldn't happen. But I believe our application process and your application is almost secondary to what they're doing anyway to stay or remain on the property. Documentation to get started. Now that can be a little challenging because you have someone that comes in and they're looking at a property, and let's say it is $1,000. Well, they have to make sure they prove to you that their voucher is $1,000. So that's like an extra step. So in my office, my staff immediately says, yes, this property is available for, the voucher program. However, do you qualify? Can you, give us your documentation that shows that this is your voucher amount? And that saves some time and some energy. And most people are forthright. They tell you exactly what the case may be. I recently had a situation where the lady was off by $25, but she loved this property. It actually happened to be a one-level master down property, and she really wanted it and she qualified for it. And so there was a process where she did have to request the additional $25, and thankfully she did get it, and she's actually moving in this week. But documentation, of course, is important, and we have to make sure, of course, that they line up with everything. The initial inspection, and I know we're going to have a scenario about that or a talk about that a little bit later. But again, it's no different than what you're probably doing in house. You're verifying that everything is operational, that the property is safe, that it's habitable, that all the mechanisms are working. And so INLIVIAN is coming in and saying, we need to make sure that this property is prepared for a new resident. And this is our guideline. And they give you that guideline. They give you that check sheet. And what I found is it's generally quite similar or right on point to what someone would be doing in-house anyway, except for maybe if you're a self-managing landlord and you don't have a checkbox just as of yet. But it's a great process, again, to make sure you're doing your job and you're on point. And then, of course, you have the move-in process where the tenant is doing their documentation. They're completing their lease as normal. Any addendums that you have, of course, have to be reviewed to make sure they line up with the program. You actually have the HAP contract that you'll actually do, and the tenant's able to move in. You also have renewals, and we talked about that longevity, and that's key. Being able to keep that tenant in 3, 5, 7, maybe 8 years, if not more. I can tell you that I have 2 tenants that I know that I actually placed when my first career. They're no longer being managed by me, but they're still in their properties. So that's a very long time. So to exclude this population almost doesn't make sense when you have the opportunity to retain a tenant for a long period of time. And again, the move outs, we talked about that. There's a notice requirement with the move outs. Someone has to give notice. They're supposed to. And if they don't, we've talked about the risk mitigation process if someone just decides, hey, I'm just going to leave unauthorized. But for the most part, a tenant's given proper notice. You're providing a good standing letter to that tenant. You're going to go in and do a pre-move out, or that's my suggestion to you, that you go in and do a pre-move out before the tenant moves. You work out any kind of issues that might be withstanding prior to the move, and then you're going to do your move out inspection as you would with any other tenant. Next slide, please. And again, I hope I'm giving you some information that really helps you look at the opportunity to partner with INLIVIAN based on profits, occupancy, and property preservation. And I just wanted to add for demographics for anyone that's new to the program. Of course, we're thinking about Mecklenburg County, but there's also, surrounding counties that offer similar programs. You have bedroom sizes from 1 bedroom up to 5. I actually didn't know that there was a 5-bedroom, and that was, my discrepancy until a few years into the program. And then you can absolutely have a single family, a townhome, a condo, an apartment. And what's important as we go back to screening your tenant and having documentation is when you're talking to a tenant that has this voucher, make sure that you understand, even if they're saying it to you, make sure that you see the documentation to show what type of property they have and what dollar amount. Because based on the property type, the dollar amount can be different. And we have seen tenants that sometimes get that confused, if I will. Say that. So make sure that when they're coming to you about your property, if it's a single family, make sure that they know the voucher amount for their single family and you're actually seeing that information. Next slide, please. So, property preservation with HCVP. I know we're going to talk about inspections just a little bit later, but I just want to tell you, I find that partnering with this program is actually quite helpful. And it correlates, again, with processes and procedures that we do internally, but it also helps to enhance it just a little bit. Number one, you have that move-in inspection. So if you're your self-landlord or if you are a property management company managing for other people, it's great to have a third party, whether it's the HCV program, HCV inspectors that are coming out, or if it's another third party. But doing that move-in inspection, you may think your eyes have caught it all. And now you have an inspector that comes out and say, wait a minute, did you check under the sink because I noticed that there's a small leak, or I just happened to put my eyes on the fact that this faucet is loose. So there's nothing wrong. And that's really how I look at it. There's nothing wrong with that additional inspection because they want to make sure the property is safe and habitable. You want to make sure the property is safe and habitable and that there's no discrepancies after the tenant moves in on the condition of the property. I also like the fact that now we have the biennial routine inspections. I will say the annual inspections previously was a big challenge for some of my clients, but now that we've gone to a 2-year routine, everyone seems to like it. And the reason it does is because it gives property managers and landlords the opportunity to maybe do a self-inspection or survey of the property in 1 year. And then you have a full-on inspection with the program that second year. And so we found that that's been very helpful, again, to make sure and maintain the property in a well manner. And it actually helps, I believe, actually coach tenants on certain avenues, like how to change a light bulb or, how to do their filters. One of the challenges we've had in the past is that tenants coming in from like apartment communities and they're now in single family, there's a little coaching that has to be done. And those inspections really help with that, or I believe that they do. As far as tenant caused damages, you don't do anything different than you would with a market tenant, except for the fact that if there is a tenant caused damage and you can, prove that, there's no question about it. If there's a dollar amount attached to that, we generally will place that on a tenant's account. We send them letters, we email them, we talk to them, we walk them through it, and we tell them why it's a tenant cause. And I'll give an easy example: air filters. We require that our tenants change air filters every 30 days. If they have any challenges, they have the opportunity to call us. If they don't call us, we have the belief, I won't say assumption, we have the belief that they are actually doing this on their own. And if they're not, we have a way to check that. And so they can be charged a nominal fee for air filters. Well, that's a part of our lease. That's a part of our normal process. But in doing these inspections, they actually get to see the process of changing an an air filter, or making some kind of nominal repair that maybe or damage that they caused. And so when you look at tenant caused damages, we have not found that, program recipients do any more damage than anyone else. And when there is damage, I like to say, and I don't know if it's okay, but I like the word big brother. I know that might not be right, but as I'm explaining this program, I'd say there is a program. People understand that when they signed up, they've signed up to certain stipulations and responsibilities of this program. And one of those responsibilities is to make sure that they're maintaining the property to the best of their ability, and making sure that they're reporting anything and all of these things. And so a part of the tenant caused damages, if it's beyond normal wear and tear, we have a way to either work through the damages. In some cases, based on the move out process, a tenant can be delayed until the process has been worked through. And again, you have that risk mitigation opportunity up to $1,000 once you've gone through the security deposit, if it's proven to be more than normal wear and tear. Owner required maintenance and repairs. The program does not state that we should be doing any more than we would do anyway, right? You want a person to live in your property, you want them to pay rent on time, whether all of the rent's coming from them or a subsidy program, you're required to do maintenance and repairs. That's just what it is. The only difference sometimes is in the inspection area, where there may be some gray areas. But again, you get to work that out, and you sign up on the program and you know your responsibilities. And then we talked a little bit about move out challenges. I honestly have only had 2 issues where move outs were just rough. I'll leave it at that. And again, I was able to work that out with the program and the recipient, and using the program as a partnership in order to do that. So move outs, again, are no different than any other move out, except for the fact that you have the opportunity to do a pre-move out inspection of your property prior to the tenant leaving. And if there are any challenges, potentially work that out before they actually vacate the property. And of course, you don't necessarily have that during a market tenant or with the market tenancy. Next slide, please. So we've talked about profits, occupancy, and property preservation. And for me, participation with INLIVIAN is business as usual. You either prepare the home as usual, you screen as usual, you lease and have supporting documents as usual, with the exception of adding in the HAP contract. You have a move-in process as usual, and your day-to-day operations do not change. You can still flow the exact same way. So really, what would cause you not to want to partner with INLIVIAN? Next slide, please. Screening process, and I've added this picture, the landlord-tenant law. Make sure you know landlord-tenant law. Make sure that you're screening your tenants, make sure that your leases, and make sure that your policies and procedures are really no different for a market tenant versus someone that's having a subsidy. As of right now, my suggestion to you is if you want to go through the program and partner, if you're not already, make sure that you get with one of the members of staff in order to have the meeting. I think Kia just actually spoke about having a meeting with landlords to talk about the program to make sure that your current policies and procedures align with what's expected from you. So again, business as usual with the exception of just some small tweaks. Next slide, please. Whew. Mr. Lovsack actually talked about all of this, so I won't go into all of this, but what I will say that property management in a crisis, and right now, of course, we're dealing with the COVID-19 crisis, but crisis could mean anything. It could be flooding, like we're having this morning in certain areas. It could be a tornado, which we've had before. It could be an earthquake, which we've also experienced this year. Relationships and partnerships matter. And so in this process, what I have found is that partnering with this program and having recipients of the housing voucher has not changed how I manage or how my company manages or most managers manage properties in respect to rental payments. We still expect to get rental payments, even though you have all of these government items around now, the CARES Act, the CDC halts, the North Carolina Order 172, which our attorney just spoke in reference to that. You still have all of these. You still can do your late fees if they apply outside, of course, any limitations. Evictions, we just spoke about. Your lease renewals and notices, handling maintenance, communications with residents, and continuing to stay sane, safe, and secure during this time. I won't go into all of the details here, but again, partnering with this program has not changed anything about the process. The only thing that I have seen that has changed is the inspection process. And we're actually doing some things internally, like having third-party inspectors go to properties if the tenant feels comfortable with that, or pushing them out with the owner's approval. So again, at this time, even in COVID-19, partnering with the HCV program has not in any way impacted our business or our business model. We're not doing anything different. And so for anyone out there that has had questions of, do I have to change this or should I do this differently? The answer is more likely 9 to 10 times no. It may be just a small tweak, but for the most part, again, it's business as usual. Next slide, please. Upward mobility. And this is the final reason why I think your participation in this program is so important. I did not realize that participating in this program could actually change the trajectory of other people's lives. And that is why I promote this program to my owners. I continue as a participant in the program personally with my own properties, because I recognize that secure and affordable housing in diverse communities can change the lives of especially children. And who better to do that than individuals that have excellent homes, safe homes, and affordable properties. So even if you're someone that owns multiple properties, give this opportunity a try. I don't think you could lose at all in any way by partnering with this program. And it means so much to me. Kia actually mentioned the report showing that Charlotte was 50 out of 50 for upward mobility. And that's heartbreaking, right? And so from a property manager and from a landlord, if you can affect that change, if you can make a difference by even one participant, even one person, if you have one property and you get one tenant, that tenant may stay with you for, again, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, 15 years. But you've offered them something that maybe they couldn't get otherwise. So I do ask that not only do you make it a business decision, but you make it a personal heart decision when you're making this decision. Next slide, please. So, do you have any questions? Again, I am a participant of the program personally. From a business standpoint, I've worked with the program, again, for 18 years personally, and over 15 years. I currently manage a portfolio of about 10% of our business is dedicated to the program. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask now. Put it in the chat, and I'll also give you my contact information directly, because I love to talk about this program.
Well, Sherika, we had winners for your questions.
Okay.
We had, for the number of voucher holders, we had Patty McGowan.
Okay.
From For payment standards, we had Jamie Aiken.
Okay.
And for the average tenancy, we had Brittany Cunningham.
Okay, perfect. If you'll get me their email addresses, or all of them will have my contact information in the next slide, I'll be more than glad to get with them so they can get their $25 gift card.
All right.
Do we have any questions?
Yes. Okay. Question 1. Have you participated on the Housing Choice Voucher Provider Advisory Committee? And if so, what has been your experience?
Yes, I have. I've been on the advisory committee for a few years now. And what I have found is that I have been able to talk not only with program members, but other colleagues to kind of work through concerns, questions, also to help provide feedback on the program for adjustments. And I will tell you, the biggest one for me was the biennial, learning about the biennial inspections. I think that was huge for me. Also, the opportunity housing has been very impactful in just learning more about that. But I think that program has been great because it shows that the program is actually listening to the individuals that are out here, doing the day-to-day work, getting feedback from their owners or individuals that are using the program, and then taking it back to help make the program stronger. I also believe that one of the biggest challenges is just the myths around the program itself. And so, changing the name, of course, was huge. I think that was an excellent opportunity, but people sometimes still have it in the back of their minds. But I have really enjoyed being a part of the program. And I can tell you, I picked up the phone several times with other colleagues and said, hey, what do you think about this? What is this scenario? But just to know that the program wanted that outside feedback from the people that are doing this every day was important to me.
Can you repeat again how many years you have partnered with INLIVIAN and how many voucher holders currently rent with you?
Okay. So for 18 years, so my own personal investment, I have partnered with the program. So I've had an individual in one of our homes during that time for that number of years. I have managed properties. So I own a property management company. And so I've managed for 15 years as of July. And all 15 years we have partnered with the program. I honestly can't tell you how many families, but at any given time, the most I will have now is probably about 20. I think right now we're at 15 or either 16 participants, excuse me. In the past, I've had up to 30, I think 35 is my max. And again, 2013, we changed our business model. And again, it had to do with the sequestration. We just had to say to ourselves, if something of this magnitude was to happen, do we want this big of a ratio of individuals that could be impacted by, a loss of payment? So we just had to tweak that within.
Can you tell me a little more about the continuity bonus?
Yes. So the continuity bonus is if you have a current tenant. So let's say you have a tenant in today. Today's November the 12th. And that person gives a notice on November 30th. If that person moves out and then you release to another participant of the program, I believe it's within 30 days, you are eligible for the continuity bonus, which would cover up to 14 days of loss of income. And again, that's an incentive for you to continue using the program on that particular resident.
Sharkika is actually 60 days.
It's 60 days. Okay, it's 60 days.
Have any of your HCV tenants been impacted by COVID-19 with respect to paying rent?
Yes, we have had tenants that have been impacted. Again, the same way we had with market tenants. Fortunately, many of our tenants, because of the dollar amount that they pay towards rent, it hasn't been an issue where an owner would, how can I put this? There would be angst for the owner, and they've been able to resolve the issue without having to do, anything further. I will say that we have been blessed during this period that our tenants have really used all of the resources available to them back in March, we started sending, end of March, we were sending resources out all the way up till this morning about how they can get assistance from anywhere from food to lights, utilities, rent, etc. And so the impact with the program, again, because of the amount that they're paying, you have owners that aren't feeling, they're not getting overly, of course they're concerned, but they're not as overly concerned because you have someone maybe paying $2, someone paying $300 of a $1,200-$1,300 rental amount. So what our owners are saying is work with individuals, as they're coming in. And again, looking at the business model right now, owners that are with the program are probably feeling a comfort that maybe other owners are not feeling.
Do you recommend doing your own inspections once or twice a year to ensure there are no issues and also make sure there has been no damages done to the property?
Yes. I am also a part of NARPM, which is the National Association of Residential Property Managers. I serve as the chapter president here in Charlotte. And one of our big conversations is inspections versus surveys. And so some states have what they call licensed inspectors. And so many of us are moving away from the term inspection and more evaluation or survey. And so my advice to any landlord, any property manager is to do some type of, putting your eyes on your property at least once a year. Our process winds up being like 3 months prior to the lease, when the lease is due, so that we can determine if we want to do renewal. So even if you have a program recipient that's only doing a 2-year inspection through the program, you definitely should be getting into that property that off year, that one off. If you are a landlord and maybe you only have one property, every 6 months is cool. We talk about a lot of different ways to get into a property. If you only have one property and you want to be the one that goes out to check your, let's say your air filter, doing it every quarter is okay. But I definitely believe that at least once a year is good. I will also tell you one of the things that has been very beneficial to us and fun is doing tenant self-evaluations. And we do contests throughout the year. It might be for, spring, where we're only doing the outside, people showing flowers, those types of things in their yard, Christmas decor, Thanksgiving setup, Halloween. And so this way it gets people actually giving you information, and we tell them, hey, can you send us, 5 pictures of the outside, and we tell them what those pictures look like, or, 10 pictures of the interior, and we tell them what it looks like, and then if there's any red flags. And then lastly, we also do talk about individuals doing drive-bys. Drive-bys are very important and can also help you lead to those interior inspections as well. Any other questions?
Do you have any current properties available now? And how do you go about marketing?
We do. We do have, I think, 3 right now that are available for the program. And we use a system. Our website is designed where it syndicates to, I think it's 32 sites at this point. But one of the questions on our website when we log into it actually says, will you accept the voucher program? And actually, it still says Section 8, unfortunately. And once we click that, it feeds to other marketing syndicates. And so it will show that we actually have a program, a home available. And I will tell you, when we put those houses on the market, last week we put a house on the market, a 4-bedroom, I think it's $13.95. We got 10 applications on the property within 2 days, just because there's a need for, good properties. And it's a beautiful property. It's a really nice property.
This concludes the Q&A session.
And please, if you'll go to the next slide, please, if you're a landlord, if you're another property manager, get connected with me. Our website is there, carrotproperties.com. I love emails. I love the chat. I don't have a problem, with speaking to someone and giving them any further information or advice in regards to partnering with the program. And we're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.